Okay, in this video, we're going to do a really tough math problem, very much like what you might see on test day. So we have this problem that says if a plus b equals c and a minus b equals d, then a times b divided by 2 equals. And we're going to look at the answer choices before we attempt this. So as you scan the answers, they're all kind of variations of c and d and 2 or 8. And sometimes the C's and D's are added, subtracted, sometimes squared, sometimes not. Okay. So you have to ask yourself at this point, do I really know how to do this algebra? And I've done algebra like this with thousands of students, and I have to say, the answer for almost everybody is no. Now, if you want to go ahead and give it a shot, go ahead and pause the video and see if you can do this algebra. I'll show you the algebra in a few. But one of the things we teach in our class is there's times where you're going to run into math where you actually do not know how to do the math. It happens to me all the time. And I've been teaching math for a decade. But on these tests, they really give you some tough questions, but they often leave open a way to solve the question that's different than just doing the straightforward algebra. And so that's what we're going to do. So we're going to solve it first in a strategic way, and then for those of you that want to see it, we'll solve it the math way. Okay. So the strategic way. Looking at the answers, you see that each of them has variables, C's or D's. That's a huge hint that maybe we should just choose our own numbers for A, B, C, and D. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start by choosing an A and a B. And then I'll figure out what C and D have to be. Now, I want my A to be bigger than the B, so I don't end up with a negative over here. And my favorite numbers to choose in this sort of scenario, small prime numbers. So I'm going to make A 5 and B 2. Then A plus B equals C, so A plus B equals C. C has to be 7. You can't just choose a random 7. You have to make something that these two add up to. Then A minus B equals D, so 5 minus 2 equals 3. Now, what we have is we have a roster of numbers that fit the scenario. A plus B does actually equal C, and A minus B does equal D. And now we can just answer the question. A times B over 2. Well, A times B over 2 is 5 times 2 over 2, which is just 5. So the answer to this question is 5, using our numbers. Now we have to find the answer choice that agrees that it's going to be 5. So we start down the answer choices, and we look for the one that plugging in our C and our D come out 5. So if you do A, you get C squared, 49, plus D squared, 9, 56 divided by 2, that's 28. We're looking for 5, so not the right answer. B is C minus D over 2, so 7 minus 3 is 4 over 2 is 2, but not 5. On to C. C squared plus D squared over C plus D. Well, that'll be 49 plus 9 over 10, and that'll be 5.6. That was close, but this is not about close. This is going to give us an exact result, so not the right answer. Going to D. C squared minus D squared over 8. So C squared is 49 minus D squared, 9. So 49 minus 9 is 40. 40 divided by 8 is 5. The same thing we were looking for. That means D is the right answer, by the way. Let's still check E. C squared plus D squared divided by 8. So that'll be 56 divided by 8. That's going to come out to 7. So D is the only answer. Go ahead and build your confidence in this strategy by tinkering and changing your numbers, using your own numbers, and seeing that D is always going to be the answer choice that comes out right. The reason is we're doing the same math as the algebra. We're just doing it with real numbers rather than variables, and it makes it so much more doable. People that aren't math geniuses can still do this math. Okay. Now, for those of you that are math geniuses or want to know the algebra, let's solve this again with the algebra. Okay. Now, so if we're going the algebra way, the answer choices are still hints, and a lot of them have C squareds and D squareds. So that kind of gives us a push in the right direction that we're going to need to square some things. So we're about to get into some algebra that most people can't do. But here we go. And really, just even knowing the steps is the hard part. If you know the steps, the algebra itself is not bad, but knowing the steps. So what we're going to do is we're going to square this. We'll come back to this in a second. So if we square this, we get c squared on the right, and on the left we get a plus b times a plus b. So we have to FOIL that. As you FOIL it, first outside, inside, last, you get a squared plus 2ab plus b squared equals c squared. We're going to do the same thing to this part. We're square both sides. On the right, we get d squared, and over here, we're going to have a minus b times a minus b. Now, that comes out to a squared minus 2ab plus b squared equals d squared. Okay, so at this point, we have two equations. We now have some c squareds and d squared terms, but we have a lot of combined things. We have a squareds, b squareds that we want to get rid of. So here's how we do it. We stack the equations. I'm going to take this equation and write it down. And then I'm going to put this one right below it. And then I'm going to subtract this equation from that equation. It's a tough step, but we're going to subtract this whole thing. So on the right, I actually get c squared minus d squared. On the left, when I take a squared minus a squared, it cancels. When I take b squared minus b squared, it cancels. But when I do 2ab minus a negative 2ab, it adds up to 4ab. So here's what we are left with. 4ab equals c minus d squared. But the question itself was ab divided by 2, so now I have a few more steps. So let's divide each side by 4. So I get ab equals c squared minus d squared over 4. Getting close. And now let's divide each side by 2. So I finally get to ab divided by 2, what they asked for, equals c squared minus d squared over 8. All right, let's count the steps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So there were about 8 steps of algebra. But the steps themselves, a few of them were even tough, but just knowing the steps is the tricky part. So the whole point of this video is doing it the strategic way. Choosing your own numbers is probably going to be best for most people. So go ahead and play with that a little and see if it works for you.